Sixth grade, welcome to science class. Yesterday we were talking about different adaptations. There were three major types of adaptations that we talked about. Structural, what your body does. Behavioral, the different things animals or plants or humans do to help them survive. And the last one was body processes, the different things they go through like hibernation and photosynthesis to get there. Today we're going to talk about how do organisms get energy. It says all living things need energy to carry out life's function. A food web shows how energy can go through the organisms in an ecosystem. So we'll talk about both of those things today. You got your notes in here ready to get set. Let's talk about the flow of energy. As a brown bear prowls the woods in search of food, it needs energy to stay alive and grow. All organisms need energy to carry on life's function. Number one, what is it that is considered a life function? Life function includes growth, movement. Number two, repair and reproduction. Okay, so they always talk about what does it mean to be alive, guys. You have to be able to do those things. Now, that's common knowledge to us as humans that we do those things, but you also got to think about the microscopic things. They also have to be able to do that to be considered a living thing. Most living things on Earth depend on the energy of sunlight, either directly or indirectly. So you got number 3 in your notes with directly. What that means is the berry bush gets energy directly from the sunlight. The leaves of the bush use the energy of the sunlight in the process of photosynthesis to produce the glucose. Plants can use the chemical energy in glucose as a source of energy for the life functions. Plants are producers. What's a producer? An organism that can make your own food. So you got the word food here, guys. You got the vocabulary word producers, although it's not in yellow because they assume you know that already. You might want to make it yellow in your brain and understand that plants produce their own energy. They can get energy directly from the sun to photosynthesis to the glucose they need. It doesn't transfer to anybody else. Plant takes care of itself. That's different than the next two we're going to talk about. Not all organisms get their energy directly from the sun. Bears and other animals do not have adaptations for capturing sunlight to make food. They are consumers. Organisms that get energy by eating other organisms. So you're down here with consumers get their energy by eating other organisms. That's us, guys. We are a consumer. When the bear eats the berries on the bush, it gets stored energy in the berries. The bear is indirectly using energy from the sun. So the sun to the berry bush grew berries, the bear eats this stored energy, it gets its thing. It wasn't a direct path. It didn't go sun, bear, it went sun to berries to bear. That's indirect, not a straight line. Okay, the toadstools in the picture make their own energy, right here, toadstools. The toadstools in the picture can't make their own food, and they do not eat other organisms. How do they get energy? When organisms die and fall to the ground, their bodies decay. Decay is caused by decomposers. What are decomposers? Organisms that get energy by breaking down the remains of dead organisms. Okay, so you want the word breaking down, guys. Do not write the word eating. Okay, so are there organisms out there that eat dead animals? You bet. Vultures eat dead animals, guys. They're a consumer. They're eating something. Okay, the bacteria and the toadstools that live off it and just break it down, that's a decomposer. Make sure you keep those two things separate. Toadstools are decomposers. Decomposers release the materials from the dead organism's body back into the environment when they can be used by other organisms. Without decomposers, nothing would decay. That might sound good at first, but then remember, dead organisms would just pile up forever. So instead of thinking anything like animals there, guys, think like leaves. Okay? Leaves fall from the tree. The world is not buried in dead, dry leaves because all winter long they are being broken down by the bacteria in the ground, and their nutrients are being released back into the soil. So we have decomposers constantly breaking that down. Guys, we also have other animals that will consume that stuff. Are there any bugs out there that eat leaves? Of course. So understand that those things are working hand in hand to tear the dead things apart and return the nutrients back to the soil. Okay, life without sunlight. More than a kilometer below the ocean surface, chimney-like structures called hydrothermal vents. So this is hydro, water, thermal, heat. Spew water that can be hotter than boiling. Water pressure is so great that it would crush your lungs immediately. Sunlight never reaches these vents, and so you might think that conditions like this make life impossible, but a unique group of organisms thrive there. Perhaps the most notable organisms are the giant tube worms. They have no mouth, they have no digestive system. They get energy from billions of bacteria that live inside them. These bacteria are producers, but they do not use sunlight. The bacteria change energy from chemicals in the vent water into food for the tube worms. Vent ecosystems are teeming with a variety of species. You can find giant clams, mussels, spider-like crabs, and soft-bodied spaghetti worms. Blind shrimp, octopus, fishes swarm about. In all, you'll find more than 500 different species, and scientists are discovering new species every few weeks. That's a lot of life without any sunlight. Now, guys, all these species here, don't think that they are all living without sunlight, but they have found some that can do that. So for number 7, there's a vent ecosystem that can live without sunlight. And that's why I just want to stress that to you. That's why number 3 says the word most. So lots of us used to think all living things depend on the sun. Now they've discovered these vent systems in the ocean, guys, where we have very little, and when you think about the overall Earth, guys, percentage-wise, but there are things that can survive without sunlight. Just God in His wisdom keeps the varieties going. And as we start to study some of these things, we've learned to discover that. So be careful with that word right there. If they ask you true, false, all things depend on sun. No, not all, guys. Most, but this page, this paragraph right here says it's not all. All right. Let's move on. Food chains. As organisms produce food or eat other organisms for food, energy travels from organism to organism throughout the ecosystem. Number 8 in your notes. A food chain shows one possible path along which energy can move through an ecosystem. Number 9 in your notes. The arrows on the food chain always point toward the organism that receives the energy. For example, the microscopic organisms, common mussel, and herring gull in the picture show a food chain. So I'm down here where I got my herring gull coming in from my common mussel here, which is microscopic organism. So I got these, boom, consumed by the mussel, boom, consumed by the herring gull. So you can see I'm a microscopic organism. I might get taken out by the mussel. I might get taken out by the common prawn, like a shrimp. I'm a shrimp. I might get eaten by this oyster catcher. I might get eaten by this herring gull. I might get eaten by this common seal. All these different arrows, guys, are food chains. All right, let's put food chains together. It says an ecosystem has many different food chains. Each food chain has producers and consumers. Many consumers are food sources for other consumers, and several food chains may share some of their members. A food web shows how food chains in an ecosystem are connected. Study the food web. How many food chains is the herring gull part of? So I wrote down this. Put many food chains together and you got a food web. So reality, guys, is it's not always, I always eat just one source. So they asked me, how many different food chains is this gull part of? Look at all these arrows coming into it. Okay, I got arrows. It can eat a variety of food. And guys, that's just the pictures they put on there. Okay, there's obviously a lot more food out there. Lots of times we think I want to be on the top of a food chain. We'll continue to talk on tomorrow about the danger of what each one of those things means, okay? So they also said something else. Down here at the bottom of my food chain, guys, I can even have consumers and consumers. So you can have multiple consumers there as these things happen. So you see all these different pictures and the different things that are eating them and different arrows that they're going. It's a complex web getting eaten and eating a variety of things. God in His wisdom says you got to have more than one food source, obviously, or we're going to run into a whole lot of trouble. Awesome. All right, extra credit on your worksheet today. You got a starfish here. I want you to write down an animal based on these arrows that eats a starfish. Write that on the top of your notes. Starfish gets eaten by, and there's only one correct answer to that one. Have a great day, guys.